We need more psychology. We need more understanding of human nature, because the only real danger that exists is man himself.
Have you ever stopped to think that maybe you are not who you think you are? That the thoughts you have, the decisions you make, the desires that seem to be yours, may not have come from you? What if I told you that there is a hidden force within you, silent, deep, dark, that has been guiding your life since day one, without you even realizing it? No, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is psychology. And if there is a name you need to know to understand what is really going on inside your mind, that name is Carl Gustav Jung. Are you tired of repeating the same mistakes, of sabotaging your relationships, of feeling that something is holding you back, pulling you down, even when everything seems to be going well? Maybe it's your shadow. Maybe it's the archetypes. Maybe it's the collective unconscious screaming for attention. But what is all of this? And why should you care? Because ignoring these aspects of your psyche is like walking blindfolded through a minefield. You will get hurt. You will repeat patterns. You will suffer. And the worst part, you will call it bad luck or fate. Carl Jung is not just a psychologist. He is a cartographer of the human soul. He mapped the most hidden corners of the mind, where no one else had the courage to go. And what he discovered can change everything you think you know about yourself. This video is not a biography. It is not a summary. It is a mirror. And I will show you what you have been avoiding to look at for years. But be careful. Once you understand Jung's ideas, there is no turning back. You will start to see things that were previously unnoticed. You will recognize the monsters that live inside you, and perhaps, for the first time, you will understand that the greatest enemy of your life is not out there. It is within. The good news? This enemy can become your greatest ally, but only if you have the courage. So take a deep breath, clear your mind, and get ready. Because this is, without exaggeration, the only explanation about Jung that you really need to hear. And after it, you will never look at yourself the same way again. Carl Jung was not an ordinary psychologist. He was not only interested in curing symptoms or adjusting people to a sick society. He wanted to go deeper, much deeper. He wanted to understand the human soul. Jung looked into the abyss of the psyche and had the courage to dive into it. And what he found there changed the history of psychology forever. Born in Switzerland in 1875, Jung grew up surrounded by religious symbolism, rituals, and an atmosphere filled with silence and mystery. From an early age, he sensed that there was something more in human experience, something that could not be explained merely by words or logic. It is no wonder he would become Sigmund Freud's brightest disciple, but he would also be the one to dare to question him. Freud believed that everything in the human mind revolved around repressed sexual desire. Jung saw something else. He saw depths. He saw archetypes, symbols, myths, collective forces. While Freud looked at the immediate past, Jung saw thousands of years back, touching the ancestral roots of our existence. And for that reason, the rupture between the two was inevitable. Jung did not want to just treat mental illnesses. He wanted to restore the lost connection of human beings with their essence. He believed that the psyche was a living, dynamic system, full of opposing tensions, light and shadow, reason and emotion, masculine and feminine. And that suffering was not a mistake of existence, but a call to transformation. He created a new way of seeing the human being, analytical psychology. A path that does not seek to erase what is wrong in you, but to understand, to integrate, to make conscious what has been rejected, hidden, denied. Because for Jung, the true enemy was not suffering, it was unconsciousness. But why does all this still matter? Because today's society remains sick. We continue to be trapped in destructive patterns. We continue to ignore our emotions, anesthetizing our emptiness, fleeing from pain. And Jung not only predicted this, he offered a way, a map to within ourselves, a chance to understand why we feel so disconnected and what we need to do to reconnect. He does not offer you easy answers, nor empty promises, but he offers you something that no one else offers, the truth about yourself. And one of the most disturbing truths that Jung revealed to the world is that there is a layer of the human mind that is not individual, but shared by all humanity. A deep ocean of symbols, images, and forces that shape our lives even if we are never aware of it. In the next part, we will dive into this mysterious place that Jung called the collective unconscious, and you will realize that there are many more other people living inside you than you imagine. Most people think that their thoughts, feelings, and fears are uniquely theirs, that everything that goes on inside the mind is the result of personal experience, childhood, culture, individual memories. But Carl Jung radically challenged this idea. He revealed that there is a deeper layer of the psyche, older and more powerful, that does not belong to you, yet still governs you. He called this the collective unconscious. Imagine your mind as a small island. Everything you have lived, your memories, your traumas, your stories, is there. But beneath this island, there exists an invisible dark ocean shared by all human beings. A sea where symbols, images, and patterns that have been formed over thousands of years swim. These are ancient myths, primordial archetypes, forces that existed long before you were born, and that still live within you, shaping the way you think, love, and suffer. The collective unconscious is not a beautiful metaphor. It is a psychic reality that manifests in dreams, fantasies, religions, the films that move us, the stories that span centuries. This is why different civilizations at different times created similar myths, with heroes, sages, monsters, journeys, and redemptions. These stories are not just cultural inventions. They are reflections of the very structure of the human soul. Jung believed that behind every human behavior, there exists an archetypal pattern. When you feel fear of abandonment, you are touching an ancestral archetype. When you feel a deep need to belong, to find meaning, to overcome yourself, you are being guided by forces that have been present since the dawn of humanity. And that is exactly why ignoring the collective unconscious is like ignoring gravity. You can pretend it doesn't exist, but it will still pull you down. It will manifest in your relationships, in your choices, in your repetitions, until you realize that you are not just fighting against your own ghosts, but against the ghosts of all humanity. But what exactly lives within this collective unconscious? Who are these invisible forces that shape your behavior without you realizing it? Jung gave them a name. He called them archetypes, universal forms, present in all of us, that act as patterns of behavior, emotion, and thought. And among all the archetypes, there is one that is the most ignored, the most feared, and the most dangerous. It lives within you. And as long as you do not look at it, it will continue to control your life. In the next part, we will talk about the shadow, the dark side of your personality that you try to hide, but that watches you all the time. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Have you ever done something that you later deeply regretted and couldn't even explain why? Have you ever exploded with anger at someone and later said, "I don't even know what got into me"? Have you ever felt envy, jealousy, anger, pride, but chose to ignore or justify those emotions instead of facing them? Then you have already met your shadow. You just didn't have the courage to look at it. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries within themselves a dark side, a rejected, repressed, denied part, made up of everything you don't want to admit exists in you. your most shameful impulses, your unacceptable desires, your weaknesses, your arrogance, your cruelty, your neediness, your vanity, your fury. All of this lives inside you, and the more you try to repress it, the stronger that force becomes. The shadow is everything you tried to hide to be accepted. It is what you had to suffocate to fit in. It is the child that was pruned, the teenager who had to be silent, the adult who learned to smile while crumbling inside. And here is the brutal truth. Everything you don't face in your shadow starts to control your life beneath the surface. The shadow doesn't disappear. It disguises itself. It manifests in the judgments you make of others, in the anger that explodes for no reason, in the shame that paralyzes, in the internal voice that says, "You are not good enough," in the sabotage that prevents you from moving forward, always at the most important moment. And the more you believe you are a good person, the more dangerous your shadow becomes. Because you don't recognize anger, selfishness, envy as parts of yourself, so you project them onto the world. You start to see evil always in others, and never in yourself. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." In other words, as long as you keep pretending the shadow doesn't exist, you will continue to be dominated by it. You will repeat the same patterns. You will choose people who hurt you. You will sabotage your opportunities. You will flee from love, success, freedom. Because deep down, you believe you don't deserve it. But there is a way. There is a way to confront this darkness, not to destroy it, but to integrate it. Because the shadow is not just destruction. It also holds power. It contains the raw energy that, if well harnessed, can transform you completely. But for that, you need to be willing to enter dangerous territory, to face parts of yourself that have been banished, forgotten, suffocated. It is in this confrontation that the true process of self-knowledge begins. And Jung named this process. He called it individuation. A difficult, long path, but absolutely necessary for those who want to be truly free. In the next part, we will understand how this process works and why it is the only real way to become whole. Because as long as you continue living in fragments, you will continue living in conflict. Most people spend their entire lives trying to fit in, pleasing their parents, meeting social expectations, conforming to the standards imposed by culture. They mold themselves, distort themselves, anesthetize themselves, all to avoid confronting who they really are. But deep down, there is an emptiness, a discomfort, a feeling that something essential is missing. Carl Jung knew exactly what that was. He called it the absence of individuation. Individuation is not cheap self-help. It's not about living your best version or manifesting abundance. It is the brutal, intense, and profound process of becoming a whole human being. It is the confrontation with one's own shadow, the integration of internal opposites, the reconnection with the soul. It is ceasing to be just a mask, what Jung called the persona, and starting to discover the true self that lives behind it. Individuating is dying to what you thought you were, to be reborn as something more authentic. It is the collapse of the ego, the breaking of illusions. It is facing the parts of you that you have denied for decades. It is discovering that you are neither as good as you would like, nor as bad as you fear. It is accepting that you are light and darkness, strength and fragility, courage and cowardice, all at the same time. And here's the part no one tells you. This process hurts. A lot. Because it requires you to let go of the lies you built to survive. It demands that you stop blaming others and start taking responsibility for your own life. It requires you to stop living to be accepted and start living to be whole. Individuation does not happen all at once. It reveals itself in crises, losses, ruptures. Each time something in you dies, a belief, a relationship, an identity, something new is born in its place. But this only happens when you are willing to face discomfort, doubt, chaos. Jung said that the encounter with the self is, by nature, a defeat for the ego. And he was right. Most prefer not to follow this path. They prefer the comfort of ignorance. But those who have the courage to face the darkness discover something priceless: freedom. Because by integrating your rejected parts, by confronting your shadow, by listening to your soul, you become what you have always been, but never had the courage to be. And the soul speaks. It speaks all the time. It just doesn't use words. It uses symbols, images, stories. It speaks through your dreams. And if you know how to listen, you can uncover secrets that reason could never access. In the next part, we will enter this mysterious territory. We will explore what Jung called the symbolic language of the psyche, and understand why your dreams may be the key to your transformation. While the modern world mocks dreams, treating them as nonsense or random noise of the mind, Carl Jung went in the opposite direction. For him, dreams are the voice of the psyche. They are not noise. They are messages. Encoded, mysterious, symbolic, but never useless. Every night when you sleep, something inside you awakens, and it begins to speak. But the problem is that you haven't learned to listen. Jung saw dreams as attempts by the unconscious to restore psychic balance. When consciousness strays too far from essence, the unconscious sends images, scenes, archetypes, symbols, everything necessary to pull you back to the center. Dreams, therefore, are not just records of daily experiences. They are guidance, directions, invitations, warnings, sometimes even alerts. Think about this. Why do you dream of falling when you are losing control in real life? Why do you dream of teeth falling out when you feel weakened? Why does the same symbol appear repeatedly, even in different dreams? This is not coincidence. This is the soul trying to communicate. But the soul does not speak in rational language. It speaks in symbols. And here comes one of Jung's greatest contributions: the study of archetypal symbolism. Lions, snakes, houses, forests, mirrors, doors, tunnels, mothers, shadows. These elements do not appear in your dreams by chance. They represent parts of your psyche. They are pieces of your soul trying to emerge. And each symbol has an energy, a function. A house, for example, may represent your inner self. A snake may indicate transformation. A ladder may point to spiritual ascent or unconscious descent, depending on the direction. A mirror may be the reflection of the shadow you do not want to see. Understanding this language is like learning an ancient language, the language of your soul. Jung believed that the more we ignore the symbols of dreams, the further we drift away from ourselves. And when we stray from the center of the soul, we become lost. We enter a crisis. We become anxious, depressed, disoriented. We lose our sense of direction because we lose connection with the internal compass. Dreams are that compass, and ignoring them is like covering your eyes while walking through a maze. Do you want to know who you really are? Do you want to understand why you attract certain patterns, why you feel stagnant, why you carry certain fears? Look at your dreams. Write them down. Reflect on them. Face your symbols. They contain answers that your conscious mind cannot formulate. But dreams are not the only ones that speak in symbols. There is a much deeper, older, and more influential force that also manifests through them. Archetypes. They are the invisible characters that live within you, the true directors of the theater of your life. In the next part, we will reveal who these archetypes are and how they shape your emotions, decisions, and relationships, even when you believe you are in control. Have you ever caught yourself acting strangely, as if you weren't yourself? Have you felt like you were repeating patterns whose origins you don't even know? Or that you always attract the same type of person, the same type of pain, the same type of story? Carl Jung knew exactly why this happens, because within you live invisible forces, true psychic characters that not only influence your decisions, they stage your life. These forces are called archetypes. Archetypes are universal structures of the psyche. They are not ideas you learned. They are ancestral patterns that were born with you. They are as old as humanity itself. They reside in the collective unconscious. They are like internal models that shape your behaviors, your emotions, your personal narratives. And the most unsettling part? You can spend your entire life being guided by an archetype without ever realizing it. Jung identified several of these archetypes. The hero, for example, represents the force that seeks to overcome, that faces challenges and tries to achieve something grand. The wise one is the one who seeks knowledge, truth, discernment. The shadow, as we have seen, represents everything that has been repressed and denied. The anima and the animus represent the feminine in men and the masculine in women, energies that need to be integrated for us to become whole. These archetypes are not just ideas, they have energy. When an archetype dominates the psyche, it possesses you. Literally, it takes the wheel of your consciousness and drives your life without asking for permission. That's why sometimes you act like someone else. That's why certain relationships pull you into dynamics that seem straight out of a pre-written script. You are living under the command of an activated archetype. People who save everyone around them, even while destroying themselves inside, are often being dominated by the hero archetype. Those who seek constant approval, fearing rejection, may be trapped in the archetype of the wounded child. Someone who seems always drawn to chaos and destruction. They probably live under the dominance of the unintegrated shadow. And here's the point. These archetypes are not enemies, but when unconscious, they enslave you. When recognized and integrated, they empower you. They are keys, portals. When you start to recognize who is speaking inside you, you begin to take control of your own narrative. But for that, you need to be conscious. You need to learn to identify these internal voices, these symbolic patterns, these mythical forces that hide in your relationships, in your reactions, in your desires. Because only then do you stop being a character and become the author of your own story. And it is precisely here that Jung's ideas become even more urgent. Because today, more than ever, we are being bombarded by stimuli, distractions, and pressures that pull us away from our essence. We live in a world that pushes us outward and completely disconnects us from what exists within. The consequence? An emptiness, a collapse of meaning, a spiritual crisis masked as stress, depression, and anxiety. In the next part, we will understand why Jung's ideas are more relevant today than they have ever been, and how they can offer answers to the psychological chaos of modern life. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's core ideas and gives you tools to understand yourself more deeply. Link is in the pinned comment. We live in the information age, yet we have never been so disoriented. We have access to everything, all the time, and yet we wander lost, fragmented, exhausted. Modernity promised us freedom, but delivered anxiety. It promised connection, but drowned us in empty comparisons. And amidst this constant noise, a silenced question screams inside millions of people. Who am I, really? It is precisely at this point that Carl Jung's work becomes more relevant and more necessary than ever. Jung did not offer ready-made formulas. He did not sell happiness in pills, nor did he promise success with positive thinking. What he offered was something infinitely more powerful, a path back to the soul, a route of reintegration with everything that has been forgotten, suffocated, distorted by a society obsessed with productivity, appearance, and performance. He foresaw the collapse of identity. He saw how modern man would be consumed by the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted, admired, promoted. He knew that by ignoring the shadow, we become slaves to the forces we pretend not to have. That by rejecting our dreams, we cut the bridge to the unconscious. That by laughing at symbols and archetypes, we lose the map of our own being. Jung wrote about this decades ago. But today, it is as if he were describing exactly what is happening. People who feel empty, even surrounded by achievements. Relationships that are increasingly superficial, fragile, disposable. Existential crises in young people in their 20s. Explosions of anxiety, depression, and disorders that medicine tries to contain but does not understand. The modern world sold us the illusion that we can live only on the surface, but the soul does not accept being ignored for long. And when it screams, it does not ask for likes. It asks for meaning, depth, integration. Jung was not a therapist for times of peace. He was a guide for times of collapse, times like now. Because when everything outside loses its meaning, status, success, control, it is necessary to turn inward. And this internal dive is frightening, because inside, you will not only find light, you will find monsters, traumas, masks, painful truths. But you will also find something that no one can give you, your true self. You will not heal your life with ready-made phrases, nor with shortcuts. But if you have the courage to face yourself, to strip away the illusions, to dive into this process that Jung called inner transformation, then yes, there is hope. And this video is here for that, to remind you that there is a path, that your pain makes sense, that you are not broken, you are just fragmented, and you can rebuild yourself. But what does that mean in practice? How do you start this journey back to yourself? How to move from theory to real transformation? In the next and final part, we will close this dive with a raw and necessary truth, and show you why this video could be the turning point your soul has been waiting for. You spent your whole life trying to fit in, protect yourself, and belong. You pretended to be strong when you were in pieces. You smiled when everything inside you was screaming for help. And at some point along the way, you forgot who you were. You forgot your essence, your mystery, your creative chaos, your soul. But now something in you has started to awaken. And it's no coincidence that you are here. Jung believed that nothing happens by chance, that even the most accidental encounters are manifestations of the unconscious trying to show you something. And perhaps this video has been exactly that. A call. A call to stop running away. A call to stop lying to yourself. A call to abandon the surface and dive deep into the depths of your psyche. What Jung teaches us is not easy to hear, because it requires courage, it requires pain, it requires responsibility, but it is also liberating, because the moment you understand that you're not broken, just unconscious, you gain power, the power to transform, to integrate, to heal. You don't need to understand everything right now. You don't need to decipher all your dreams or identify all your archetypes. But you need to take the first step, the step of honesty, the step of saying enough. Enough of living on autopilot, enough of denying your pain, enough of being a prisoner of a superficial version of yourself. From now on, everything changes, because now you know. And what has been seen can no longer be invisible. And I want to make you an invitation. If this video touched some part of you that was asleep, comment down below. Tell me which of these ideas confronted you the most. Which truth hit you hard? Which part of your shadow you know you need to look at, but are still avoiding? Because just putting this into words, you are already bringing light to the unconscious. And this is the beginning of liberation. If you found this video powerful, the next one is just as important, maybe even more, because the journey inward doesn't end here. And the soul, when awakened, wants more. So click on the next video, continue this dive, because you are just at the beginning of what could be the greatest transformation of your life. See you there.